gynocentrism has helped humanity grow.
Wait, what? Did you guys... Did you guys just hear what I heard? Hold on. Let's play that part again.
Gynocentrism has helped humanity grow.
Oh, this is the icing on the cake. Oh my gosh. What the Alright, let's continue. Oh my gosh.
But I think that anything can be good or bad. Too much of anything is bad for you. And so I think that we've gotten too much gynocentrism right now, and it's bad for society.
Square, are you high when you made this? Ladies and gents, I think Good Square had an overdosage of red pills. I'm an anti-MGTOW, and even I think the idea of gynocentrism is terrible on any level. It's ludicrous. Gynocentrism is like the effect of a poison. No matter the dosage, it is harmful and dangerous in any amount. And since when has gynocentrism actually helped anyone? What the heck? And am I even responding to an actual MGTOW? Putting the jokes aside, good morrow, ladies and gents. It is I, the confused Crimson Crusader, your #1 source for anti-MGTOW content, who is still trying to comprehend what he just heard right now. Like, welcome to Comment Wars Part 5, apparently. Like, right now, I'm just dying inside from that insane argument I just heard. I mean, if you thought the last video was pretty crazy, wait till you watch this video. Anyways, we'll get back to that part later. First, we need to focus on getting through the other points. If you haven't seen the previous parts of this series, then you need to watch those first, so you know what the heck is going on. Now, as you all know, Comment Wars Part 5 is the actual final installment in the series, where I'll be responding to the response video of MGTOW YouTuber Square Peg. I'll be wrapping up the series by addressing Square's points about MGTOW and women, gynocentrism, and so much more. Again, I want to reiterate that I'm here to respond and make fun of Square's arguments. While I'm not here to strawman or personally attack Square, I will call him out for hypocrisy and anything else that I think people should recognize in his arguments. Again, I'll be playing clips and paraphrasing Square's arguments to keep this video flowing. More information will be at the end of this video, as always. I also ask my fellow followers of this channel and the rest of the audience to be open to what I have to say. And with that, let's put this series to rest.
I still have a hard time thinking you don't have anything against women. No one joins MGTOW if they like women. See right here, this is the craziest statement that people make. Because on one hand, people will say, oh, MGTOW, you've been hurt by women. And a huge portion of MGTOWs are divorced men with children. So, not only does that prove that these men did at some point like women, but also that women like them too, and they're not just losers that can't get laid.
Here you're strawmanning me again. I never implied or suggested MGTOW are losers who can't get laid. What I am saying is usually when men join MGTOW after rejection and divorce, they typically will have a mindset and attitude of animosity towards women. While men may have loved women at one point, their current attitude has changed. Your logic for refuting my argument, or my point, is so flawed because you fail to take into account that people's attitudes change. Your argument is like someone saying that that people who join the KKK don't hate black people because at one point they may have loved a black person. Just because you love something in the past doesn't mean you love it now, especially after a negative experience. From my perspective, people seem to join MGTOW because they fail to get over their resentment and bitterness towards women. In my honest opinion, many of the people in MGTOW probably use this movement, and yes, it is a movement, not a philosophy, to play my favorite game, the victim blaming game, instead of maybe accepting that you might have caused your relationship to fail, you start blaming others and not holding yourself accountable to what you did. Now, while some situations may not be the man's fault, one has to wonder if these stories the MGTOW are telling are even true. MGTOW is a really cynical branch of the MRA movement where they think men are being oppressed, but what separates MGTOW from MRA is they believe that there is nothing they can do about changing and improving men's rights. I mean, how depressing can you get? If you're part of a negative movement that thinks men can't do anything, then it only makes sense you would have a negative view of humanity. If MGTOW doesn't hate women, then why are there MGTOW monks who refuse to interact with women? People who don't refuse to talk to someone they love. Why do MGTOW communities exclude women from their sites or servers? While it is your right to decide who gets to go on your community, isn't that discrimination to ignore someone who has a different gender than you? Why do many MGTOW think women are incapable of understanding MGTOW? Are these MGTOW implying that all women are intellectually inferior to men based on some statistic you found on the internet that shows the bell curve between men and women? And on top of that, you negatively describe women as weaker and dumber than men. I mean, I understand the weaker part, but you could have worded that a little bit more respectfully. The way you present these arguments about the differences between men and women, it sounds like you're trying to push some sort of Nietzschean philosophy. You know, I have an interesting question for MGTOW. How come MGTOW always points out the flaws of women and never has at least one positive thing to say about them? If MGTOW do love women, why haven't I heard MGTOW denounce the stereotyping of women as manipulators and selfish people? Stereotyping is dehumanizing because you associate that person with that one negative aspect and you fail to recognize and take into account their humanity and ability to learn, change, and grow. Are these kinds of things MGTOW consider to be love? Because that's not showing love. How is this showing love towards women if you won't even talk to them? How can the MGTOW community love women if some of them allow other MGTOW to push women away? Is this a movement of growth or a movement of isolation? This is what every MGTOW must ask himself. While I don't know if you believe in this stuff, your argument contradicts the attitudes I see in the MGTOW community. I know this seems a little off topic, but if these divorced men care about their children, why are these guys part of a movement that goes against the family structure? MGTOW men are going their own way. They are not getting married. Many MGTOW think it's okay for other MGTOW to avoid talking to women completely. What message are you sending to your kids? And how are you helping the population grow? And yes, I know, you can call me out for shaming language, but you should be ashamed for your attitude. It's selfish.
Personally, I love women. I love huge breasts and a fat ass. But the situation is what I don't like. I don't like to see my fellow men committing suicide at one of the highest rates ever in history because they can't even keep their car after they get divorced and they have to go sleep in a cardboard box.
Oh my gosh. Did I just hear that? Wow, how mature. Here I think you're confusing lust with love. You reflect this confusion with your attitude towards women. The only positive thing I've heard MGTOW say about women so far is comments about a woman's body, and you just proved that. You know, just because you love someone's body doesn't mean you love the person. If you only like someone because you want to have sex with them and they have a good-looking body, then they become an object of your pleasure. Therefore, here you are objectifying women and creating this toxic view that women are an object of pleasure. Instead of talking about how much you love women's big breasts, why can't you comment about a woman's character or personality? I know this sounds cliche, but isn't who the person is on the inside that truly matters? In my humble opinion, love is wishing good to others, even if you fully don't understand the other person. If you only love women for their body, what happens when they are older and they are less attractive? Are they not as valuable as they were when they were young? Sorry if this got personal, but this is a serious thing I have to address and call you out for. Now my challenge for you and every MGTOW is to list five positive attributes about women that have nothing to do with their physical body. I'm hoping you can at least name one. Moving on, about the car suicide thing. First, how do you know that most men are committing suicide because of divorce? Where's the proof? And have you ever taken into account other reasons why men commit suicide, such as, losing a job? This statistic is too broad to make an accurate claim about men. Second, you proved the hypocrisy of the MGTOW community again. MGTOW accuse women of being materialistic because some of them use men for money and resources. Yet, in this comment, you are suggesting that a man will kill himself if he loses his car. If you are willing to kill yourself over losing a car, you've got some serious issues. I mean, If you value your own property over your life, you are an extremely materialistic person who needs help. Maybe this kind of materialism that some MGTOW have is why they fail at relationships. However, that's just a theory, but it's something to think about. Now, this shouldn't be surprising to my fellow anti-MGTOW because I hear all the time MGTOW talking about resources. It seems you prove that it is MGTOW who have a more materialistic view of the world than women. It's so ironic how the accuser is actually the one with the problem. Let's play another clip.
I don't like seeing hardworking men lose their job and their reputation because some thought on Instagram accused them of looking at their breasts for too long.
Really? Since when did this happen? How can a man lose his job over looking at a woman's boobs for too long on Instagram? This doesn't make any sense. Where did this even happen? Now, this is something that is absurd. No sane employer would fire someone for that. Also, how could a woman know if a guy was looking at her boobs for too long over the internet? Unless she could somehow hack into the guy's camera and see how long he is looking at her, or she sees him in person, there is no other way this would happen. I don't see how anyone would have enough proof to fire someone for this unless the guy was looking at his phone while he is on the clock. Then that makes sense, because you are distracted and unfocused and you deserve to be fired for that kind of thing. Even if there is a story out there, that is one story that doesn't prove anything. An anecdote is not evidence because it does not represent what a whole population might do. Another thing you don't understand when it comes to false accusations is that many of the times these false claims are being used as political stunts to go after people. You are viewing this from a very narrow perspective, and you need to understand these kinds of dubious tactics that are being used to attack political rivals or to get money out of people. These kinds of false accusations historically go back to the time when America was a colony. Back then, men falsely accused widows for being witches and hung them in order to get their property and money. Yes, certain people are scummy and full of rubbish, but that doesn't mean women are plotting to ruin a man's life. The kinds of people who are doing this stuff are sociopaths or at best narcissists. This kind of disorder is found in both men and women, so this is not some sort of us versus them gender war. Really, these false accusations are being used as tools to further someone's agenda. The byproduct of this is that can pit genders against each other and can be used to divide and conquer people.
I could really care less what women do beyond hurting my fellow brother men.
Wait a second. Earlier you said that you loved women. Why are you now saying you don't care about them? I mean, doesn't that contradict what you were just trying to argue? To me, it seems you only care about the welfare of men, but not the welfare of women. So if a woman hurts a man, you're going to care. But if a woman hurts another woman, you're going to be like, whatever, at least my fellow men aren't hurt. That does not sound like a loving attitude. Is this not a negative demeanor towards women? The I don't care doesn't affect me stance is something often I hear from libertarians. Again, you are continuously proving the hateful and depressing perspective MGTOW has to offer about people. It's just quite sad.
So, to say that I'm not a charitable person, no. But we live in a capitalist society. And if you give somebody something for nothing, then you lose. That's just how it works these days. I would love to, spend the rest of my life planting gardens and feeding people, but that's just not how it is. You've got to protect yourself. You got to protect yourself from people that are trying to get something out of you. If it's not your family, and it's not your close friend, then F them. That's just how it is these days.
I'm sorry if I offended you, but the way you described charity and your attitude towards women made it seem that way. However, the way you described white knights made it sound like you believe that helping women is a bad thing, though I could be wrong about that, so please correct me if that is so. I do understand that you need to protect yourself from people who might try to take advantage of you. However, I think your view of charity is very depressing, though. In charity, we are trading a material thing we don't need in order to bring happiness to someone's life. In a capitalist society, if we help others, we strengthen our society. This creates more stability and allows capitalism to thrive. Furthermore, the ability for humans to be charitable is what separates us from animals. While animals may give something to other animals, they do it out of their own interest instead of putting their interests aside and helping someone out. I also disagree with you that you should disregard people who are trying to get something out of you unless they are your family member or a close friend. If you're talking about people taking advantage of you, I disagree with you, because you should avoid anyone, even if they are your family member or friend, because it is usually those kinds of people who are going to hurt you the most if they're trying to take advantage of you. Their close relationship allows them to have greater access towards your stuff. If they are family or friends, you are more likely to trust them, and they may use that trust to get something out of you without you even knowing it. On the other hand, if you are talking about trying to get something out of someone because they need help, I also disagree with that. You should only help family or friends. While we need to be careful with everyone, it's sometimes okay to help someone out. Imagine a stranger who's lost and doesn't have their cell phone with them, and they ask you if they can borrow your cell phone to make a call. Would you not help them because they are trying to get something out of you? I mean, the way you just say it is so pathetic. At the end of the day, charity is a beautiful act of kindness, no matter what society you are in. Let's go to the next video clip I want to look at.
Thing for me that I can do is not be a part of the problem. As long as I'm not hurting anybody and I'm trying to keep my area of the world clean and, like not bother my neighbors and stuff like that, that's the best I can do these days. Yeah.
I think this is a very kind of limiting and flawed way of helping to improve the world. While it is good to help clean your neighborhood up and not bother people, you can still do more. What about helping people in another neighborhood pick up trash or help build houses for the homeless people like in China? You can always do better to help the world. I know this sounds cliche, but human kindness isn't limited to just a small area of the world. It is a breath of hope that can blow across the globe. People like us who live in the United States and in these Western countries have the resources to easily help others in other parts of the country or globe. Don't limit yourself to what you have to do. Limit yourself to what you can do. I think every person is capable of doing a lot of good outside of their community, especially if you live in the first world countries like the US, UK, and whatnot, and many of other European nations. I also agree that you should not hurt other people, but it is also your civic duty to help someone else who is being hurt. This leads back to the problem with libertarianism. They are so focused on their own needs that they become desensitized to the needs of others. People become dehumanized. People become a dehumanized narcissist when they only focus on themselves. A person cannot get any more self-centered than that. While many libertarians are not like that attitude, the philosophy is. If you see some guy getting beat up in a neighborhood you're not used, in a neighborhood you don't know, by some other guy, sure, this doesn't affect or hurt you at all, but isn't it your obligation to help that person even if it doesn't benefit you? I'm not saying you want to help people or that you are a narcissist, but I'm pointing out the flaws in the way you are thinking, and I do encourage you to do more to help society. Don't limit yourself. Moving on to another one of your points in your video, another place where you misinterpret what I say is my comment about chivalry. For instance, in your video you claim that chivalry is a code of ethics developed by knights in Europe that says nothing about women. You state that, in the code, men have no responsibility to protect women because it only talks about the strong must protect the weak. First, I want to make it clear to you that I was talking about chivalry as in being a gentleman, like opening doors for people, so I don't see what's wrong with that. Second, I'm sorry to break it to you, but your logic is just awful. Now, if we're talking about the chivalry like the code of the knights, yes, while the code doesn't directly mention women, women are still people who are part of the European society, which means this code still applies to men's relationships with other members of society, meaning women. In general, women are physically weaker than men, so I don't see how this code does not apply to them. Your argument gets even weaker when you try to argue that in European chivalry, you have no obligation to protect women when feminists claim women are stronger than men. First of all, who cares what some crazy radical feminist says? What matters is doing the right thing, regardless of what nonsense people try to push. This reasoning is very flawed anyways because you are trying to use misleading information from the feminists to shirk your responsibilities. Your poor attitude towards other people proves my point about how irresponsible many libertarians tend to be, which you also reflect with your previous comment about how you don't care much about women. Actually, the code of chivalry is meant to elevate man above his base nature, so a man should try to be the best version of himself, regardless of what others believe. Now, just because other people do not wish to rise above their base natures doesn't absolve man from his obligation to be at his best. This is depressing and a dehumanizing attitude towards humanity that refuses to acknowledge man is meant to rise above his animal nature. So, near the end of this video, you refuse to talk about why you think the family courts are treating men unfairly. Your reason for not talking about this is because you don't have children, and then you go on recommending I check out someone else's channel. My question for you is, why are you talking to me about the family courts in the comments section, but you refuse to talk about it in this video? Do you know for sure that the channel you mention is reliable, or statistics and information are even true that it's going to present? I'll take a look at the channel though, because I do think it's important to understand the other side's perspective. Thanks for referring me to that channel, as I would like to learn more about what the other side thinks is going on in the court system. Next, you decide not to respond to my other comments because your video is getting too long. First of all, I think you should respond to my other comments because those are important issues to talk about. I mean, come on, your video was already 32 minutes anyways, it's already pretty long. Anyways, in these comments, I talked about how men should be going to psychiatrists or counselors to get therapy instead of first going to MGTOW. Don't you think men should get professional therapy instead of consulting the internet? I also mentioned how the liberal society in the United States is focusing on minorities, not exclusively women. I think in some parts of American society we have minorcentrism, people focusing on minorities instead of gynocentrism. What are your thoughts on that? You know, these are very important issues that you should address and that relate to men in some way. Sorry, but your video being too long is no excuse not to answer these questions. Then you claim that you are trying to be objective, but you can't because you're a man. You should explain what you're saying because this doesn't make any sense. What do you define being objective as? For me, I define it as someone who's looking at the facts, and I see no reason why a man can't do that. Finally, now, let's respond to your next and final clip in your video. And to be honest, this is my favorite part, and you guys are going to see why.
But I think that we both agree that there is some level of gynocentrism going on in society. Just to me, I feel like it's gone beyond the natural realm of that which helps, humanity grow. Because gynocentrism has helped humanity grow, but I think that anything can be good or bad. Too much of anything is bad for you. And so I think that we've gotten too much gynocentrism right now, and it's bad for society, and it's taking society down.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, but dear sir, did you really just endorse gynocentrism? Even an anti-MGTOW like me despises gynocentrism to its very core. Since when in history has there ever been an appropriate level of gynocentrism? And since when has it helped humanity grow? Seriously, dude, where are you getting this stuff from? Society, and especially men, should never, ever put a woman on a pedestal and treat her like some god. Societies that live like that are probably going to fail. When you have a little bit of gynocentrism in society, it starts to grow and it ruins equality between men and women. I think every other MGTOW would agree with me 100% on this point. So no, I disagree with you. I can't find one, not one society that had whatever you define as a natural level of gynocentrism, and that society succeeded. If you look at early human history, naturally it was the men who dominated the women, not the other way around. It is the man's nature to be a leader and a servant, not a gynocentric slave. Simply put, a gynocentric society is cultural suicide. However, I think gynocentrism is bad, and I do agree that it does exist in certain small radical groups of people like feminists and many other liberal groups. However, there isn't enough evidence, not nearly enough evidence to prove or to even suggest that the entire society or the entire Western culture is gynocentric. Such a claim requires an enormous amount of proof and statistical evidence that comes from credible sources. In general, MGTOW have never come close to producing that kind of evidence. So, in conclusion, no, gynocentrism does not exist everywhere. There's no hidden conspiracy to enslave and take out men. It's insanity. It is insanity. I can't believe this video is already over. But before we end this little series of ours, here's my overall thoughts about Square's response video. Even though Square's video was a bit long and excessive to responding to a bunch of comments, I want to thank him for deciding to respond to my comments. I'm quite flattered that you, Square, thought my comments were important enough to make a video on them. Now, when looking at the way Square presents his arguments, he often contradicts himself, omits information, makes assumptions, misinterprets points, cherry-picks information, and many of the arguments are false or seem to lack credibility. However, Square has made great points, such as demonstrating to those who don't know that men and women do have their differences, that men do face struggles, and so many other important points. Now, overall, Square and I do have agreements and disagreements, but at the end of the day, I think we are just men trying to navigate through life and trying to do what is right. I think Square is an independent-minded person who's willing to stand up for his beliefs and question the status quo. If there's one thing I want everyone to learn from this video, is not to underestimate the underrated anti-MGTOW community and to realize the power of information, true or false. My message for the anti-MGTOW out there is let your voice be heard. Don't be afraid to share your opinions, because it is better to have a discussion than to build up resentment by not addressing our grievances or disagreements with the other side. So the next time someone tells you, anti-MGTOW, that you can't come up with a good argument, and that the anti-MGTOW community can't come up with a good argument, surprise them with this video series. Before I go, I want to give a huge thank you to those who made it through all the videos in this series. Congratulations, you made it through the comment wars. I also want to give a shout out to my anti-MGTOW YouTuber friends, The Forbidden Thinker and Lucifer's Troll, who have been supporting me throughout this series. You guys are the best. As for channel information, I still don't have a schedule for when I'm going to be posting my videos, but it's most likely going to be every Sunday each week, so we'll just have to see. I'll give you guys an update in my next video about that. Anyways, if you learned something throughout this series, give this video a like and share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment telling me what you thought of this series. What was your favorite part? What could I improve on as a new anti-MGTOW channel? Until next time, my fair ladies and honorable gents, fare thee well.